Hello and welcome to Game Theory. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. Today, we're going to break down Scottie Barnes, one of the breakout players of the 2023-24 season to this point. He's averaging 22.6 points, 9.9 rebounds, 5.9 assists. He's actually averaging 2.1 blocks, 1.1 steals per game as well. He's shooting 42% from three. We'll talk about some of the reasons throughout this video that I'm a little bit skeptical of that number holding up, but also some of the reasons that I feel a little bit more bullish on his shot than what we've seen throughout the first two seasons of his career. But more than anything, we're going to talk about the San Antonio Spurs game from on Sunday, where he carried the Toronto Raptors to a victory in the second half of this game. And what I think was most impressive is it was very clear while watching the tape that this was not the best that Scottie Barnes could have played. Maybe you can say that it was in the fourth quarter, and his fourth quarter is one of the best quarters I've seen a single player play throughout the course of this season so far. But in the first half, even early on in the third, you'll see that this wasn't a clean road for him. He had his struggles. He did not play all that well. I think he only ended up with 3 points at halftime in this game, but he turned it on in the second half. I think he had 27 in the second half and was absolutely fantastic. They win this game in overtime. So we're going to talk about everything I've seen from Scottie Barnes and why I think that none of this is really all that fake outside of maybe the 42% number from three right now. He looks very real. I think he looks like he's in all likelihood going to be an all-star this season. He has been complete to an extent, certainly on offense. Defensively, we'll talk about why I think maybe some of those counting numbers might be a little bit drastic compared to what his impact is on the court. But I'll also break down some of what I thought of Scottie pre-draft. I'll break down, look, I had Jalen Suggs ahead of Scottie Barnes. As Toronto Raptors fans, let me know ad nauseum. That was very clearly incorrect at this point, even if I still am a believer in Suggs to an extent. I also called Scottie Barnes a no-level shooter. We'll talk about some of what I saw at Florida State and why I made that designation at that point, even though I probably shouldn't have said it at the time. It was just kind of a cheap line to say that was, a single one-liner. And we'll talk a little bit about overall where his game is right now and why he is going to be an all-star this upcoming season. He has been absolutely fantastic. So let's just dive into the tape and talk about what I'm seeing from Scottie Barnes. All right. First clip here. We are at 9 minutes or so left in the first quarter. And this was not a great start for Scottie Barnes. I want to be clear about that. This was a bit of a struggle early on, and we're going to talk a little bit about the offense and the defense, some of the Jekyll Hyde nature of the defense particularly, but we're going to start here. He's going to get a rebound. Scottie is right here. His last name is Barnes, if you can't read that on the screen. But he's going to grab this rebound and he's going to try and push. And this is the thing that I've loved more than anything about Scottie Barnes this season. He is aggressively grabbing and going. He's pushing. He's trying to put pressure on the defense. That has not changed from the changeover from Nick Nurse to Darko as the head coach in Toronto. This one, though, is kind of where he can kind of live on the borderline of trying to be too aggressive. I think that 90% of the time this season, he has found that perfect blend of aggressiveness and patience, right? Most of the time it's aggressiveness, but he does know when to pull it out. This is one where, unfortunately, as you'll see as he's going through, I actually just don't even really know what Scottie saw on this one. I would love to know. So he's going to try and hit Pascal Siakam streaking. And you can see that Siakam, it feels like he kind of goes like he's going to run and he's going to try and get by Sohan. And I think maybe what Scottie is seeing is that once his foot is beyond Sohan, once he's even with Sohan, Siakam is so fast that he's going to be able to get by him. But the problem here is that he also has Zach Collins waiting. Sohan is long. He has like a 7'3" wingspan. If somebody's going to be able to recover onto him, Sohan is one of the few guys in the league that probably would be able to. I think that's just kind of a mistake read. It's okay. We're going to talk a lot about Scottie reads that are excellent throughout the course of this game. And I think in general, Scottie's only averaging 2.1 turnovers so far as well. He's been really, really solid in terms of decision-making. This one just wasn't all that great. This next one here, Scottie, he's going to pick up Victor Wembanyama in transition. Vic is right here. It's going to be fun to go through some of these clips, and you guys will see just generally how impactful Victor Wembanyama's length is on the court. And Scottie is going to end up in an exchange here with Gary Trent and has to communicate through it a little bit. Unfortunately, he just ends up going and jumping out way too high here. And I can't tell if he's pointed his body, this direction basically, where he's trying to force Vic to go to the left side of the court, or if he's trying to, or if he's not trying to do anything, if it was just like a total lack of attention to detail necessarily. But what you're going to see is just this jump, right? This jump step is kind of an over aggressive thing that I think Scottie can do a little bit too often. It makes it a little bit difficult for him in closeout situations to be on balance and stay in front. I in general, this summer, I thought the overreaction to Scottie Barnes' sophomore season was way too aggressive. But I felt like early on last season, one of the things I noticed is that I thought he wasn't a very good defender. I think this season he's been a lot more solid, and there are a couple of clips throughout the course of this game where we'll talk about his closeout technique being a little bit better. This is one where it's not really a closeout. He's just kind of jumping to the man here. Against Vic and against many NBA players, really, you can't jump to somebody like that, especially with your front foot, you're being the inside foot high, because it just is going to create such an angle for these guys who are so immensely talented to be able to drive on you. And on top of it, when you jump like that, your momentum is stopped, right? You're jumped, you have to land, you have to then drop your hips, right? Scottie here just doesn't give himself enough time, and Vic is going to blow by him. These are the small things, the small attention to detail things that I think Scottie has all of the tools to improve, and he's very clearly a high IQ player, but he needs to improve the fundamentals a little bit on the defensive end, and we'll talk about that throughout here. This one here, we're going to see just a little screen from Scottie into a pick and pop, and he's going to miss this one. Let's just run through this again here. This is like a simple action. I think a lot of what Toronto is running right now, for the most part, is pretty quite simplistic. They're trying to get guys like OG Anunoby, Scottie Barnes into space, Pascal Siakam as well, into more open spaces to isolate and then be able to create using their length and that ability to create advantages. So here, Scottie's just going to set this little screen here. Not going to clip anybody. It's not a great screen. We're just going to pick and pop. This is one where I think the mechanics are actually okay. These are the ones that I think Scottie has shown real improvement on, right? So he's getting his legs into the shot. Great bend here. That's something that we'll talk about. He has great bend through his legs. He's clearly involving the legs in the shot. The release looks pretty clean. It's fluid. I think his energy transfer is right here. Follow through is still like a little bit open. And finishes high as opposed to cupped, but that's okay. That's going to happen. That shot's just a miss. Those are the misses that are okay. We'll talk about some of the misses that work, and we'll talk about a bunch of the makes as well here. So here, what happens on this play? So again, defensively, it's a bit of a mixed bag for Scottie right now. It's a lot of really great action plays, as well as some moments that lead to buckets for the opposing team. So we're going to see here, Vic is going to come and he's going to set this screen. He's setting this here. Chetty Osman is rolling into the middle of the court. Vic is setting this screen and then rolling to the rim. This is just a pretty simple one where Scottie has to be available to tag here. He's very clearly the low man on the weak side as Chetty is driving toward the right side of the court. So what you're going to see here is that he's on Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson is not the kind of shooter that you have to like really truly stay attached to here. He's just late. He's ball watching. He's late. You do not have time when this dude right here is rolling to the rim. He is too big. He's too fluid. He's too long. You have to be timely. Scottie needs to be here already. He can't be late here. Instead, he's late and he ends up fouling. This next one here, Scottie is guarding Keldon Johnson at the top up here. Just a high ball screen from Vic. Then goes under, ends up giving up the lane to Keldon. This is a hard one. I'm not going to sit here and say, I actually think Victor Wembanyama, for somebody who is quite skinny and is not like an incredible screener, I love the way that he kind of walks through the screen here to give Scottie such a difficult angle to be able to go under the screen. It's very clear that Toronto was going under screens here for San Antonio, and this is just a really, really smart move here from Victor to leave early, make it so if they're going to go under, Scottie has to chase all the way under and make it so that his momentum is going in a really, really difficult way. He ends up kind of turning his body to get around. See here how Scottie's hips still are not necessarily like the most fluid hips in the world, right? Like he ends up having to take like a couple of these choppy steps here, right? To be able to get back into this play. Boom, 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 right there to be able to stop his momentum. So right there, you'll see the quick 3 steps. Then he stops. Then Vic is just going to be able to rescreen here, right? And at that point, I think they should probably peel switch this and communicate a peel switch. They unfortunately do not. This ends up being that Anunoby is going to come this way onto Vic, and he's going to ask Scottie to kind of fight through this action here. And it's just hard. It's hard to recover. That to me is not like, it's on Scottie's like hip flexibility that I think he needs to continue to improve and continue to use a little bit better drop steps, right? To be able to get through those actions. But I think it's also just on the team defense as a whole, right? And you have to communicate through that with OG and be able to get to the point where, okay, we're peel switching, we're doing this, we're doing that. I actually didn't put it on this, but it was one of the early possessions. It might have been at like the 10:45 mark of the first quarter. They do execute a peel switch. So it's something that the Raptors are comfortable doing. They just really need to figure out when and where they're doing it sometimes. So this one here, Barnes over in the corner here to start this possession. He's going to take a quick dribble handoff and he's going to can this 3. And this is where I kind of want to dive into, if I remember correctly, some of the stuff we saw at Florida State in terms of how Scottie Barnes has drastically improved as a shooter. So what you're going to see here is he gets that left leg out and he's going to really get that knee bend into this, right? You're going to have that extended knee bend into like inward bending knees into the shot to generate power. He's going to get that power from his lower half here now, which is great. I'm actually pretty okay with this. Some shooting coaches don't love this necessarily. They think it can be a little bit more difficult to shoot on the move. In Scottie's case, particularly, as we'll talk about, everything was so stiff at Florida State that I think I'm actually pretty okay with it here. And look at this. You can actually just see that the energy transfer here again, which is the big thing that I want to talk about with Scottie shooting, the energy transfer. It's so much better. He's getting straight up and down into the shot. This thing looks really balanced. And he's getting really, really good trajectory on it. He's finishing high. This is a good looking shot, right? This shot looks repeatable. It looks projectable. This is something that you can grow and build on. The key is consistency now. And that's something we'll talk about in some of these other clips that we go through. But I want to take you back to Florida State now. Florida State, the numbers for Scottie as a shooter were not pretty. I've 35 games worth of high school and AAU sample on Synergy for Scottie Barnes. They have him at 13 for 58 from three in those 35 games. At Florida State, he went 11 for 40 from three. So basically, you're talking 24 for 98. That's going to be right between 24 and 25% from three. I believe those are his last 2 years of high school and AAU and in college at Florida State. So wasn't really taking a lot, wasn't really capable of taking a lot, and didn't make them, right? So when I said previously that he was a 0 level shooter, that takes out like one level there, right? Like the 3-point level is gone. Second, he only made 6 of 19 from the mid range at Florida State. I don't have those numbers from his high school AAU numbers in terms of just 2-point jumpers necessarily off the top of my head, but he didn't even really get to the mid range. And that's something that's more of a function of the college game having a much more condensed court, college coaches selling out to stop the interior. It's just harder to find those mid-range shots, especially when you're somebody that's 6'9". You take up so much space. I think Scottie, in a lot of ways, is somebody that's like made me stop and think about how I evaluate guys that are these bigger, longer potential ball handlers in the college game, because there just isn't a lot of space for them to navigate and get around bodies. But here, we're just going to show the shot, right? Here's the jumper. A couple of things that I want to point out here. First, one thing, I watched all of his 3-pointers last night at Florida State, last night again, just to jog my memory on them. First and foremost, he rarely just stepped into one off of the catch at Florida State. It was just not something he was super comfortable doing. A lot of the time it'd be like a jab step or a pass fake or something like that. He was very clearly not looking to shoot off the catch immediately, right? So here he looks off, he kind of throws this pump fake and gets into the shot. And what you can see here is that the energy transfer is all off. His knees are not all that far bent, right? You're looking at knees that just are kind of there. You're not getting as much of a lower half into the shot, right? And look at how by the time his legs are straightened out here, right? The shot is still so far into the shooting pocket here. Like these legs are basically straightened out at this point. The shot is like all the way back by his head still, kind of. Whereas now, if you look at the shot, and that's a miss, obviously, but now if you look at the shot, and we'll show the one that he just made, look at how far away from his head the ball is. Look at how much closer it is to release at that point when he's shooting and when his energy transfers up through his body and to get to that release point, right? The shot, the energy transfer is just so much better right now with Scottie Barnes. And I have another clip here coming up where we'll get a chance to look at this a little bit more in depth. So here he's going to catch in the corner. I mean, his legs straighten out again before he's like off of the ground in any way. Like toes are still on the ground. Again, you see that the ball is still so far in the shooting pocket. His elbow is like kind of in toward his body a little bit too much. It's just all very hitchy. The energy transfer isn't great. You can see what the building blocks were for the shot, though. Like the shot does not come out of his hand horribly necessarily. It doesn't come out all that poorly. Like it looks okay. It's just that the energy transfer is all off. It's hitchy at the top. And he needed to work through all of these things. So here, when we go back to the shot that he just made a second ago off of this dribble handoff, it just looks so much simpler. It looks so much more compact. It looks so much more fluid. There's no stop at the top with the shot. It's not a two motion jumper, it's fluid. That's what you're looking for from Scottie, and the level of improvement, how hard you have to work to fix that is immense. Like, you have to do so much work. You have to take so much time. You have to take so many shots to get through that and get comfortable with it, to take that off of movement, off of a dribble handoff, to take it off of certain movement actions, even beyond that, to take them off the bounce. Scottie deserves an immense amount of credit for the work he's put in on his shot at this point. Now, we'll talk about a few later on in this game that show some reversions at times. A lot of Scottie's misses in college tended to be short, which isn't a surprise given the energy transfer aspect of it. I think that sometimes he does still tend to have those energy transfer issues and misses short. But overall, there's a lot to be very positive on with the shot. I don't know if he's a 42% shooter. In fact, I think he's not. But I think he'll be better throughout the course of the season than what we've seen throughout the course of his career. So here, Scottie defensively on the weak side over here to start this possession. And now we're just seeing the length of Scottie, right? So this is, I think, why he tends to like to close out as hard as he does as well. I actually think this is a pretty good closeout for what it's worth. He comes here. He's pretty on balance here, right? Like, if it looks like this is going to be a drive after he lands off of this hop, Scottie is in position here to where he can cut off that drive. He recognizes that he's going straight up. This is Julian Champagnie. He's also got help behind him, so he can kind of sell out for this. He's also got, this is 12 seconds left on the shot clock, so not a late shot clock situation. But the length that Scottie has blocking jump shots and contesting jump shots is very real. And that is a real factor for guys going up in a three-point environment. I talk a lot about ground coverage as a defensive trait. Scottie has a crazy amount of ground coverage that he can provide for a defense. That is what makes him a real high upside defender moving forward. It's just some of the details and some of the hip mobility and flexibility things that I think he has to fix moving forward to go from a guy that I think I would say is like average now. There are ups and downs, but by and large, I think he is basically a pretty solid to maybe like slightly impactful defender. He has a lot more ceiling than that if things really go right here with his development over the course of the next few years, given how young he is. There's a lot of potential, and this is why this ability to cover this much ground on a closeout, this ability to time contests going up on jumpers. Yeah, he has an immense amount of potential defensively. Next up here, Scottie, weak side. Think that his man Champagnie is going to run through the play potentially. He does, but Scottie here anticipates this. I think this is, as much as anything, kind of Julian Champagnie's fault for running through this play when Victor has a wide open lane and OG Anunoby has his back turned to him for, again, very confusing reasons. Looks like here that the Raptors are also a little bit confused in terms of who's picking up who in transition. You have two guys here guarding Trey Jones. There is a man behind the play, even beyond Victor as well. You have to hope that one of those two guys is going to pick up that man. And then OG has to be picking up Victor. But again, OG has his back turned. So that's what Victor is recognizing here. Victor is going to see, oh shit, my man has his back turned. I'm going to be able to get leverage on him and get to the basket, right? But you see here, look how early Scottie is on this rotation, right? Again, part of this is that Champagnie runs through the play when really he should just stay in the corner here. But Scottie is looking right at Victor here. He's not looking at Champagnie. He's not running through, following through the play anymore. He has eyes on where he needs to be at this point. This is excellent anticipation, excellent instincts. He's available. He's active on that back line. And this is a great steal, right? This is a great play from Scottie Barnes defensively. The action plays for Scottie are fantastic on defense. It's some of the possession by possession stuff that I have some questions about. But in general, Scottie can make these action plays, and he has showcased real anticipatory defensive instincts in a way that you would like to see. So next up here, this is a pseudo double drag, I guess, for the Spurs. I don't even know if I'd call this really a double drag since it's not coming out in transition. It was a inbounds pass, if I remember correctly, right? And then we're going to get Keldon coming downhill. And this is another excellent defensive possession by Scottie Barnes, right? This is fantastic. This is exactly how you want to see somebody run such an action. Teams run these double drags to try and confuse opposing teams in terms of, okay, who's going to pop, who's going to roll, who do these two guys here that are guarding the screeners, how do they communicate through this? Who is going to take the drop? Who is going to take the man rolling to the rim? Who's going to take the pop, right? Who's going to be responsible for dropping and stopping the guard? This way, you're going to see here, Scottie is going to be the one responsible for the drop. Another reason why teams really like to run this, if you have a guard that can string these out, right? You end up with 1, 2 guys on the guard, and then Otto Porter here is stuck guarding 1 on 2. Julian Champagnie, again, in my opinion, should be more over here, I think, to make that distance that Otto Porter here has to cover a little bit wider and a little bit farther apart so that it's a harder closeout in one direction or another. Instead, what you see here is Scottie is going to close out onto his man really, really well. He's going to get into his chest and then he's going to get the block, right? This is fantastic. This is terrific. This is exactly the kind of on balance closeout that you want to see, right? He does take the short, choppy steps, which against a guy that might be able to drive a little bit more effectively than Zach Collins, that might be a problem. But against the center, when you know you're guarding a center, it's okay. You just want to stay on balance, right? You want to be there. You want to cut off his angle. You want to be able to close out and impact the shot. That is perfect. That's exactly what Scottie Barnes is going to have to do. It's how he's going to have to do it to be impactful defensively. Next up, we're into the third quarter now. Scottie sat for, that was at 9 of the second. Scottie sat, I think, for like 6 minutes in the second quarter, maybe 5 minutes in the second quarter, came back. And now we've got 11. This is the first possession, I think, of the third quarter here, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Where you're going to see they're going to run a nice, fun action here. Scottie going to kind of raise his hand like he's going to set a screen here, but he's going to ghost it and he's going to go around, is what you're going to see. And I'll let this run through fully to start. And it almost ends up being kind of like a middle Chicago action where it's a pitch back here to Pirtle. Scottie's going to ghost this and then run around. We're going to have a screen here, and then the Pirtle dribble handoff also acts as a screen, which allows Scottie to get the ball downhill. Again, he only had 3 points in that first quarter. And what makes this so hard to guard, right? You end up in a spot where Zach Collins, who's guarding Pirtle, ends up having to just straight switch this action, which allows Pirtle here to just seal Keldon Johnson, right? This is going to be a really, really difficult spot for Keldon Johnson. He ends up sealing him off, making it so that it was an easy bucket, easy pass for Barnes, assist for Barnes. Great way to get him going in the second half here. This next one here, Barnes drives, he creates a potential open 3, and then again, cans the 3-pointer, right? Some of these are going to be just pretty simple to break down, right? This one here, I think Scottie is kind of I don't think he's coming down in transition. I think this has been reversed to him, maybe by Schroeder, and he's just going to attack, right? The way that Scottie is taking up space right now that is given to him. So by that, I mean, there is a help defender here, but he's a little bit farther away. There's a help defender here who's like kind of trying to sag in. He reads the help here perfectly. Vic is going to go for the steal using his 8-foot wingspan. He's going to time the ball pickup perfectly. He's going to get the ball out to OG Anunoby. You love, just got to call out all the little stuff that Jakob Poeltl does. Look at Jakob Poeltl here, just sealing off Zach Collins to open up this lane. It's going to force a help from either Sohan or I can't tell because I have written over Keldon Johnson. That's Keldon Johnson. Sohan helps. Vic ends up sliding way down to help. He stops. He gets it around to Scottie. Scottie wide open three. Cans it again with the Scottie shot here. Look at the deep bend. He takes it off of the hop there, gets the legs bent, gets the body into it. It's a perfect shot. It's a great looking shot, right? This one here, Scottie going to get downhill in transition, right? But notice how he doesn't immediately get downhill. Notice how he's using his patience. He's going to try and sprint this immediately because that's what he wants to do. He wants to try and get in transition. But he recognizes that he's got a trailer behind him coming down. And that the guy that Toronto wants to be on Scottie is Sohan. So by stopping here, getting Sohan on his hip, and then continuing to press forward after he gets Sohan on his hip, he's setting up either a potential pitchback situation where he could hit Dennis Schroeder for this three, or he's setting up a switch situation where Keldon Johnson is going to have to take him. And this is a mismatch leverage and power wise, right? This is a full scale mismatch where Keldon has to pick him up because he's put Sohan on his back. And now it's either a wide open layup if Collins doesn't help, or if Collins does help like he does, this is just a really easy drop off here, right? A really easy drop off to Jakob Poeltl. Great dunk, great finish. The way that Scottie is able to take up space and drive, being 6'9", this is the advantage of having 6'9" playmakers who can do all of this stuff with the ball, right? Scottie Barnes being able to take up the space that he does, being able to cover ground on offense like he does, as quickly as he does, while still being able to leverage his defenders and create those mismatches. That's what makes him so dangerous offensively, right? So this one here is a version of why I'm concerned on some of the shots, right? What do we see here? It's not that the energy transfer is horrendous here. It's that I don't totally know what's going on at the top of the shot. The energy transfer is not great. It's not as clean as some of the other ones. It's almost like he never totally gets into the shot, right? Like you can see here, again, as the legs straighten out from a rhythm perspective, it is actually the energy transfer. From a rhythm perspective, the elbow still looks pretty bent there. As I draw over it so you can't see, the elbow still looks pretty bent there, which means it's still a little bit too close to his face as the legs straighten out. It's energy transfer being wrong again. This is why I think he's probably not a 40% three-point shooter right now. The mechanics aren't quite as consistent as the guys that shoot 40% across the NBA, right? But that doesn't mean he's not a 35% three-point shooter right now, maybe a 36% three-point shooter. And if he's that consistently on 5 3-point attempts per game, half of which are pull-ups, doesn't matter, right? Like he's going to be so good at everything else he does in terms of being able to cover ground, attacking closeouts, being able to create those mismatch opportunities. Once he gets that advantage off of a heavy closeout, then it's just going to be really, really hard to deal with him. This one here, a great contested rebound against Charles Bassey. Charles Bassey's a big dude. He recognizes that Bassey is going to end up being the one that picks him up in transition. Look at how he's surveying immediately, right? Look at how he's looking backward here. So here he sees what's in front of him, right? You can see he's looking, he's seeing, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he's going to look behind him here and see that the fifth man is here. And he sees offensively 1, 2, 3 on that side, himself being 4, and then 5 over here. That means at some point, Trey Jones is probably going to have to peel off. You're pressuring Trey Jones here by putting Charles Bassey on your back, right? Your whole point here is to force this guy into a really tough spot, and he's processing all of that on the fly. So you saw here, I want to stop that real quick. He's looking back, right? He's seeing in his peripherals, hey, I've got Charles Bassey coming behind me, right? And you can see as he does it, he slows down, right? He gets Bassey on his hip. Bassey can't do anything from back there. He can't affect the shot from back there. But he's forcing him onto a tough spot. Jones eventually peels off once he sees Bassey is back onto his hip here. But by peeling off, he forces the Victor Wembanyama help. So this is kind of an easy read here to me. I think he should just be kicking this straight out to OG Anunoby. And then what'll happen is you'll get a help down here from Doug McDermott. Anunoby just shoots this up to the corner. Probably ends up with a Gary Trent 3. Maybe Chetty rotates over, right? But the worst case scenario here is it ends up back there for a wide open 3 from the fifth man that is circling behind the play, who is Otto Porter. Instead, he just ends up missing this shot. This is one where I think it just needs to be a kick out. Nothing too egregious, you know. Doug McDermott here has his back turned to the play. This should just be a kick out. But if you're Scottie Barnes and you're 6'9" and you can finish in transition like you can, I understand not necessarily wanting to kick out, right? But this is just an easy read here, I think, that needs to be a kick out. Instead, he goes to the basket, misses. That's okay. Things happen. Next up here, pick and pop from Barnes. He sets a screen here. We're going to get pick and pop into a dribble handoff, basically. Trent kind of rejects it. Barnes pops again. And now we're into a situation where Chetty is going to have to close out pretty heavy, which means Barnes, if he closes out short, that's the shot. If he closes out heavy, that's an advantage situation where it's a mismatch from Barnes. He just misses the layup, right? And then he ends up getting Victor back in the play. But to me, this is good. This is aggression. This is what you want to see from Scottie, right? You want to see him attacking, getting into the paint. And even though he misses this, I would rather him try and attack that mismatch and get there than not. Because if you look as well, I mean, what do you want him to do with the ball, right? Like, I guess in theory, you could say he's got Bassey helping down onto Porter, recognizing that Vic is probably going to come and help. Maybe he could shoot this out to another kick out, but like, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I don't see a great angle to be able to do that. Maybe here, instead of going up for the shot after he jumps up and has the one hand on the ball, he could try and like throw this awesome jump pass here to OG Anunoby. I mean, if you want to say that, I guess say that you're not wrong, but like that's a LeBron pass, that's a Luka pass. That's like guys that are the elite of the elite. Tyrese Halliburton does this from time to time. That's the step that Scottie wants to go to be like a top 5 player in the league. Then yes, if that's what you're saying, he needs to be able to make that pass to be that guy. I wouldn't disagree, but I don't really have a problem with him going up for this initial layup here. I think that maybe I don't know. It's hard. Like guys around the league are very clearly still adjusting to having Victor Wembanyama around, right? And just like completely changing the game with his length. I think here he probably thinks that he's, Vic is down. It's going to be hard to get the second jump back up. Guys will adjust to that and maybe they don't shoot it again so quickly. We'll see how it goes. Next up, Barnes kind of in semi transition in the third quarter here. Hits Anunoby going toward the basket, recognizes that Barnes has the mismatch against Charles Bassey, and he draws the foul, right? Just goes into Bassey's chest. This is smart, right? So, again, this is Bassey. He's going to see the through cut for Anunoby. He's going to see that Porter has clipped Wembanyama a little bit. That's the right pass that you want to make. It's just that this guy is an alien and his recovery speed and length is unlike anything the NBA has ever seen. This gets back to a kick out. And now you're back into a one-on-one mismatch isolation. As I mentioned earlier, one thing that Darko is doing, he is really aggressively trying to hunt these mismatches in isolation, it feels like to me, throughout the course of this season. He's giving guys like Scottie, like OG, like Pascal Siakam, who's not on the court here this play, a real chance just to go in isolation, right? This time he has a mismatch on Charles Bassey. This is one where he's using his hesitation dribbles, stop, start, speed to be able to try and go into his body and create that contact, to try and create that little bit of hesitation. Again, I think that maybe you could make a case that as he sees Vic rotate over, I would hope that he notices that Vic is here at this point. Maybe you could kind of step through with this left foot and hit this little wraparound to Anunoby. Again, that's like top 5 player in the league shit. Scottie Barnes is 22. He's not there yet. That might be the next step of his growth to be able to see that pass, but he's not there yet. This is a great play. Draws the foul, ends up at the line. Next play here. Throws the ball into Barnes at the elbow, recognizes again the mismatch onto Charles Bassey. It's almost like it looks like it's almost supposed to be a horn set where they have Barnes, by the way, at the 5. This play looks. So you've got 1, you've got Gary Trent at the 2, you've got Grady Dick at the 3, and then you've got OG here in the corner at the 4. Barnes is really playing the small ball 5. That was true, I think, of the last possession as well. And this is a great way to isolate Scottie Barnes into really difficult spots for defenses, right? Look at the score here, by the way, going into the fourth quarter. Raptors down 17, right? This is a great idea lineup wise by Darko, I think, just to get him going, get him a chance to really get some mismatch advantages here. Again, sets up Charles Bassey, knocks down the shot right in his face. Crossover. Again, I will note, look at the involvement of the legs here. You can see these playing with real bend throughout his lower half on the shot now. Transfers up. No more short misses for Scottie Barnes. This one here I put on here, not because I think it's actually Anunoby's fault. You can see that he's actually looking at Grady Dick here. I think what happens on this play is Grady, it looks like, thinks this is supposed to be played as if he's icing it. You can see that like he ends up kind of turning his hips a little bit here, thinking that Scottie is going to be here icing it and playing it like a sideline screen. I would venture that Grady Dick is in the wrong here and that Scottie is not, because this is close enough here to where it looks like it's going to be a middle ball screen. You'd have to ask these two for sure to know who's in the wrong here. But given Scottie Barnes's reaction, it looks like he kind of looks at Grady Dick and is like, wait, what are we doing there? Like he's kind of looking at Grady and looks like he's saying something. I would guess that Grady was wrong there. But again, communication. Raptors defense is still figuring some things out. They have a lot of new pieces, Grady Dick included. Uh, they'll work through it, right? This one here, this is, I just pulled this late. This was a double drag kind of uh, coming in here. It's just early. It's late in the action. I've pulled it. Vic has set the screen and he's kind of opening up already. It looks like for a potential pick and pop. Is that what happened there? I thought that's what that was. Maybe not. It's a high, no, it's a high horns. I'm sorry. This is a high horn set, is what this was. I pulled this late, and that's what this is. This is going to be a high horns. So they're kind of trying to isolate this guy here, Malachi Flynn. Trey ends up going around, which means Scottie is responsible for the drop coverage here, right? You're going to see that Malachi Flynn's going to fight over the top. Does a good job getting over the top. Scottie recovers back onto Sohan. Good work through that part of the action. And then gets the closeout onto Doug McDermott, right? Recognizes low shot clock at that point. Doug McDermott, pure shooter, right? That's what he's recognizing. Jeremy Sohan here really needs to set this screen here, recognizing that this is going to be a pretty typical closeout structure, right? Is this an X out? Let's take a look. I would argue that it is an X out where you're going to see Gary Trent rotate up. Scottie has to rotate out. Trent up, Scottie out. Sohan really needs to try and screen Scottie from being able to get out on that play. But Scottie makes a great play. Scottie's closing speed, that ground coverage, that length, great block onto a shooter, right? He knows that Doug McDermott's a shooter and he goes up for it. Ends up being a made bucket, but Scottie did everything he could on that play to make it work, right? This one here, great deflection by Scottie Barnes, throws it up in transition to Malachi Flynn. Flynn gets fouled. Again, though, we're at 9:25 in the fourth quarter already. Scottie Barnes has made like 6 ridiculous plays, like just absurd plays so far. And just look at him. He's looking, he's reading, gets those hands high, right? Look at that length. Makes it so it's really, really hard to throw that entry pass into Victor Wembanyama, which is what they're trying to do here. Gets the deflection. And then we're out. Malachi Flynn fouled. This is literally the next possession down after the defensive possession. And now we're pushing again with Scottie, right? We're pushing. He sees the kick out to Gary Trent. And he learned from last time trying to attack Victor Wembanyama in transition in space. He hits the early kick out here. So what is he seeing here? Eyes are up very clearly, right? He's seeing that Sohan's momentum is going that way a little bit, right? That's going to allow him, as Sohan is ball watching, to hit Gary Trent, who's a terrific shooter. Easy bucket there. This one here, Grady Dick, going to drive. This is like end of shot clock madness. Spurs blew up a set, right? Still 11-point deficit. Still 8 minutes left in the fourth. Look at this pass by Grady Dick, first and foremost. Absolutely fantastic. Second, I mean, this is the kind of stuff with Scottie that makes you go, there's some real potential here as a shooter. That is a very minimal dip. There's a dip there on the shot, but it's a minimal one. But this is fantastic. What is Grady looking at here? Why does he know that this pass is there? He sees that Zach Collins has picked up Scottie Barnes and he's looking this way, right? Man, is Grady Dick a smart player. Hits them with the surprise kick out. Again, quick shot, energy transfer good. Scottie knocks it down. That's the kind of stuff where you go, man, that was a quick release. He might have some real shit to him as a shooter, right? Next up in transition, Scottie cans a three, right? We're just going quick little dribble handoff action, right? Zach Collins decides to play this under the action as opposed to trying to fight up over the top after Scottie has made, I think Scottie's made 3 or 4 threes at this point. It's clear just that their defensive scheme on Scottie was to go under, which makes sense given that Scottie and given what the scout was coming into the year on him. And that's just perfect energy transfer again, right? You let Scottie step into one, he'll hit it. Like if he's in rhythm, he's probably he's going to make a good amount of them now. I don't know if he's going to be like fully consistent, but again, if you tell me by the end of the year he's at like 36%, I wouldn't be stunned, and that's enough for him, right? And he's going to have games like this where he goes 5 for 10 and he's going to get hot and go. Next one here, Scottie comes down again like a minute later. We're at like 9 enormous plays in 5 minutes from Scottie Barnes in this game, right? So this one here, drives Sohan, hits the kick out to OG Anunoby, crashes, gets the offensive rebound, and then just throws it all down on Sohan, right? Jeremy Sohan is not a small guy. Just a smart kick out, right? Sees Collins dip in here, sees that Collins has helped. Collins has his eye on Anunoby, but it's too far. Like he's still too far here, right? He recognizes that he's too deep. Anunoby misses. But you see this rebound, play number 10 in 5 minutes. It's amazing. And seriously, like I know that he has deep position here on Sohan. Again, Jeremy Sohan is like not skinny. He's like probably 225, 230 pounds. He has like 7'3" wingspan. This is not a dude that you should be able to go up through and dunk on by bumping him like this. Like, this is not normal stuff. This is the mismatch nightmare stuff. If you are such a mismatch physically and powerfully that you can bump this guy with your shoulder and create that much separation, you are a real problem. You are a real problem for opposing defenses. And you probably have to send help on that guy now. That is a ridiculous play by Scottie. This next one here, Scottie, you can see him waving in the corner of your screen up here. He's feeling it. He knows where he's at now. Heavy closeout from Zach Collins, and you're just going to see an awesome kick out. I mean, again, then the rebound, then the kick out to Gary Trent. Again, like 17 things that this dude has done at an awesome level here. So what are we looking at on this play? So Victor Wembanyama is on the ground here. This is just pure like scramble defense from the San Antonio Spurs off of an inbounds pass. So this is an inbounds pass. I believe the way that this started is that Barnes kind of set like a little semi-ghost action before releasing, and then Trent cuts to the basket, which means that Victor has to come up, rotate up, be there defensively. He just kind of slips there. I'm not totally sure what happened. Maybe Trent kind of steps on his foot. You've got Trent way out of the play now. Now you're 4-on-4. And this is just a long closeout for a center. Like I think Zach Collins is a pretty good defender. He's okay at least. It's just a hard closeout onto a guy that can dribble. And then he sees Trent getting back into the play, right? He's recognizing that Victor is going to be here to help and that he's got Trent over here coming. You can see his eyes are up still. He's looking. Reversal back up. He sees he has a mismatch on the offensive rebound, stays there. And that is just a quick read out to Trent again, right? Just again, I think that's 13 awesome things that this dude has done in 6 minutes to help his team get back in this game. It is now a 2-point game. The Spurs go on a little run. They get it out to 6 again. Barnes guarding Zach Collins. This whole possession, he's just kind of over aggressive the whole way, right? He's a little jumpy. Again, you'll see that with Scottie sometimes. He's going to be a little bit jumpy. Way too heavy on the closeout, just way, way too heavy. If I was, a coach on an opposing team and I had a shooter out there, I'd be telling him pump fake every time. Make it so that Scottie closes out on you heavy. And if he doesn't, then we'll see what happens. Gets to the paint, draws the foul, but that foul is really on Scottie for being way out of position on this closeout. We've seen him close out on balance on Zach Collins previously in this game, right? Like we know that he can do this. We know that he's capable of this. Ends up being that Porter has to help onto Collins, and that's just a really tough spot for Porter, right? Next up, 133 left in the fourth now. 2-point game. Scottie is down here in the corner against Zach Collins. This is a way overload possession. I don't totally know what the Spurs are running here. Why Keldon Johnson decided to drive into everybody on his team. Again, not totally sure. This is one where I think you see like kind of OG Anunoby's genius a little bit. He's like shading him. There's a specific reason his outside foot is outside of Keldon Johnson's outside foot, right? He is trying to bring him back this way where he knows he has help. And this is just good. This is excellent from Scottie Barnes. He's there. He's ready to help. That's his third block that we've seen, I think, so far. And he's available there. Catches him, right? Perfect play. Then the kick out to Keldon Johnson, and then the awesome closeout in a scramble situation as well, right? This is just really good stuff. Really, really good stuff from Scottie. You can't complain about any of this that we've seen in the fourth quarter. This is a masterpiece of a fourth quarter from Scottie Barnes. Just a true masterpiece. Here, it's just so funny. Like any other player in the NBA, literally any other player in the NBA than this dude. Look at how much damn separation Scottie creates here on that quick little move. Any other player in the NBA, this is a pull-up, and this is a no-brainer pull-up to me. But because it's Victor, and he has that crazy wingspan, and you see him coming at you like this, I mean, you just got to get rid of the ball. But what Scottie recognizes here in the middle of this little mini two-man game with Dennis Schroeder, Victor decides to overhelp, which is something that Victor does right now, and he'll get better at it. So he just kind of widens out, right? This is just smart use of space by Scottie Barnes. He's just widening out. Dennis recognizes it. He drives into the help. And at this point, I mean, Vic is in no man's land. Vic has better recovery skills than any player in the NBA probably right now, even as a rookie. He gets close. Like he almost gets back into this is the crazy thing. But Scottie just covers ground too quickly. If it was somebody that was not 6'9" with the kind of ball skills that Scottie Barnes has, this is probably not a dunk because Victor gets back into this play. But because Scottie is capable of going, that's a bad drawing, because Scottie is capable of going straight line toward the basket, covering ground as quickly as he does, with as much power and bend and leverage as he's capable of generating, it's just kind of a great play from Scottie. And again, I want to note, look at how Scottie kind of backs up, and then widens out. He keeps widening out, right? Like he starts here and then he's backing up. He's backing up, he's backing up, he's backing up, and then he's widening out, right? He's making it so it's even harder spatially for Victor to get back into this play. It's just very small stuff in terms of generating driving angles, but it's really smart floor spacing and really smart off ball movement subtly from Scottie Barnes to be able to create that angle. Next play here, 47 seconds left. I mean, this is just special, right? This is where if Scottie Barnes is doing this when he's 26 years old, like, and is more consistent with this stuff, he has a real chance to be like a top 10, top 7 player in the league, right? Like this is the stuff that's special. We are hitting step back jumpers now over smaller defenders. This is a kick out. Keldon is in position the whole way. He's there. He's setting him up. He drives him back just that little bit. Now we're going up. He's knocking it down. Again, shot just looks cleaner. It looks simpler. This is absolutely outstanding stuff, right? And then this next one here, I truly don't know what Jeremy Sohan was doing on this one. Like, I'm just going to be completely honest. So what is this action? We're going to set up here. It looks like to me, you're trying to run like a quick little exchange here to create confusion between Barnes and OG Anunoby so that you can get this post up here by Victor. Then you're going to run Zach Collins across the play for Keldon Johnson for a screen to create a bailout option coming toward the inbounder that way, right? And then Victor is going to go up. He's going to set a screen here. And the goal is to create leverage, in my opinion. I'm not certain of this. Is to create leverage for Victor to get a post up, to seal off OG Anunoby and to get a post up. Now, maybe Keldon is a little late coming through this action, and it just gets a little cloudy here for Sohan with all these bodies. But I cannot imagine that the goal there is to hit Zach Collins, who like doesn't even look ready for a pass, right? Like he's almost going toward the basket there, and Sohan just throws this thing like outside of the 3-point line. Like I truly am not sure what Sohan was looking at here, but if you like time it out, right? So he just gets the ball 1, 2, 3. I mean, he has an extra second there to let Keldon clear through this play and get Victor to try to hit this post up or just pass to Keldon on some level, right? Like that's also a very real option here, in my opinion. Jakob Poeltl being the inbound defender here. Look at how big he is. He's making it cloudy just by being big and tall. I get it. Like, I think he just might feel like he needs a bailout. They obviously don't have any timeouts. This is off of a timeout already. I think you just throw this to Keldon and pray. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what that is. Scottie, by the way, I want to call this out. Presence of mind to call a timeout here off of getting the ball. Fantastic work. Catches timeout immediately before dribbling. Just the presence of mind. Just really great work there. And then this play here, you're running a stagger screen for Anunoby to come up. They switch it. Keldon Johnson. They do switch it, right? I want to make sure of that. Yeah, so Keldon is on Siakam. Victor is on Anunoby. So they're just going to switch this, right? And then I love this. This is just really sharp. So from this screen, you're trying to roll around and loop around to try and create a potential bailout option. Takes one step, throws up a floater, misses. I didn't pull anything from overtime because frankly, they didn't really need Scottie in overtime. But he dropped, I don't think he even scored in overtime outside of a couple late free throws, but he drops 25 points, something like that in the second half. Masterpiece of a fourth quarter. I mean, I think, not seen a player put up a better quarter than that maybe this season. Like there are probably a couple other ones. I think Jokic just had a couple. I think Luka's had a couple, but that's in the top 5, top 10 for a single quarter all year. They come back from 17 to start the quarter to force overtime, and then they win it in overtime. Scottie making plays every single place on the court is a masterpiece. Scottie Barnes looks like an all-star this year. I think he's probably going to be an all-star this year. The East is deep. I get that. There are more talented players than there have been previously. But if he keeps playing like this is the Raptors all-star. He is eclipsed Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby in the hierarchy at this point. He is their guy, and he looks like a real dude. And Raptors fans can come at me, and I will have to eat crow for thinking that this team should have drafted Jalen Suggs over Scottie Barnes on draft night in 2021. My God, this guy is an absolute stud. He's taken the leap that everybody thought he might last year. He looks like a real potential superstar down the road. That's the video. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I will be back later this week with that Zion breakdown, probably the next day after this video goes live. We will talk about what we're seeing from Zion, some of the lack of explosion, but also just the immense skill level and power combination that he possesses that allows him to still be so effective. If you like this video, let me know in the comments who you want to see next. I've gotten a decent amount of Cam Thomas. I've gotten a decent amount of Zion Williamson. I'm trying to think of some other names I've gotten a lot of the rookies as well. Kind of waiting a couple of weeks on the rookies. They will certainly get broken down eventually, but I want to kind of give it a little bit of time outside of Victor and chat. So anybody else that you want to see, let me know. Until next time, we'll talk soon.